In this module, we further build the UI for the menu widgets, focusing on the look and feel of the map, plan the new preview mode, and combine it with the already built top mode. There's a lot we will cover here, so let's jump right in. Create a new reusable widget named W Color Block. This widget will contain only a single image that we will use to add some color contrast to our buttons. Also create a new enum asset and name it E Color Scheme. For now, we will only have 3 color schemes: light, dark, and branded. Once that is created, add it as a variable in our new W_color block, and after event pre-construct, set the brush tint color to a new value based on which color scheme was chosen. For light, I chose white. For dark, I chose very dark but not black. And for branded, I chose a golden yellow. Now, in W top mode, add these blocks inside the horizontal boxes after the user button. They are simply a small bit of color for this menu. I distributed them around the right-hand buttons, and for the description on top, I wrapped that button in a vertical box and placed the color button on top. Open the user button and let's add the same variable with the same color options. Create a new function inside of W user button named Update Color Scheme. We will need to change the color of the background and the color of the text in the same way we did in our color block widget. The difference being that if you were to set the color scheme as light, the background would turn light and the text would have to turn dark to remain visible. So I have the same colors for the background as I do the color block, but just dark or light for the text. Feel free to add a bit of opacity to the color values as well. I think this is already looking better. Let's move on and build some logic that sets the description text to whichever map point the user is hovering. First, add a new function to BPI Studio Showcase for the unhover event called WMapStoppedHovering. Inside of WC main button, select the button and create an event on hovered and on unhovered. When onHovered is called, it should get all the widgets with the interface, for loop the array, and call WMapPointHovered with the eMapPoint plugged into the input. When unhovered is called, do the same thing, but call our new WMapStoppedHovering event. Open the W user button and add event WMainPointHover from our interface. This should only affect the user button if the value of button function is description. If it is, change the text to be the value of the enum converted into a string. Add the event WMapStoppedHovering as well. Again, it should only affect if eButton function equals description. If it does, revert the text back to Studio Showcase. Lastly, make Studio Showcase the default text for description. Let's test in VR. I'll spawn the map, and as I hover the cursor on a button, the description is changing and unhovering sets it back to Studio Showcase. Next, we'll set up the Close Map button. This one is easy as well because the logic to close the map is already built. Open BPP pawn and add a custom event that will again be unique by pawn. Name it User Close Map. Inside of our VR pawn, add event User Close Map. When that is called, pause both timers and hide the map. We will call this from WC main button. Drag off Close Menu, get a reference to Player Pawn, cast to BPP Pawn, and as BPP Pawn, call User Close Map. Do a quick test. Spawn the menu, close map, done. Very nice. Moving on. We had previously exported the user cursor texture from Adobe Illustrator. Let's set that up in W Player Cursor. Set the exported PNG as the image and let's check it in VR. Okay, I exported it as a PNG with a bit of transparency inside of the circle, but I'm not seeing that here. This is because by default, 3D Widget has their blend mode set to masked, which is either on or off, rather than transparent, which could be any amount of transparency. Test again. Here we go, much better. Okay, here we go. Let's create the preview mode. We need 2 more widgets. The first one will be the new main widget named W Main Nav Menu, and the other will be the preview mode, named W_preview mode. Let's start by developing the preview mode. We already have all the assets built, so I'll just copy and paste from our top mode and remove what we don't need, which would be things like all of the map points. From here, wrap the description button and color block with a vertical box of their own and increase the outer vertical box to fill vertically. Then, reverse a new copy of the description button and set a new color scheme. We also will not need the switch to button in the preview mode, so you can delete that. Make sure to set the E button function inside our new description to preview mode go to location. We need to make a horizontal box that will hold our two buttons that will allow us to cycle through the different teleport points of interest. Wrap our two current vertical bars holding buttons into a new overlay panel. Add a new horizontal box to the overlay, center it vertically, and add 70 or so to the left and right padding. Inside of this overlay will be two buttons, one on the left with E button function set to preview mode left, and one on the right with E button function set to preview mode right. This will be our preview mode. It has as much of the widget open for us to view the points of interest in a sort of full screen, or as full as you can make the menu. We need to now work on the W main nav menu. It will contain a widget switcher wrapped with a horizontal box that contains both our top mode and preview mode. Top mode is the default, so it should be the first widget in the stack. Add an event W change view mode to the event graph. When this function is called, it will toggle between displaying the top mode or the preview mode using a set active widget node. We need to go back to BP 3D map and change the widget that is spawned. Instead of W top mode, as it was, we will set the widget class to W main nav menu. Before we can test this, we need to add the interface call to the reusable main button. Drag off change view mode and call W change view mode the same way we called W toggle balcony. And let's test. Everything should look the same as it did, which it does. When I press preview mode, the button layout switches, and now we're in preview mode. Okay, just as we had done before when switching the text in the change to balcony versus ground button, let's also switch between the preview mode button to say preview mode or top mode, and test again. Now, about those left and right buttons, let's quickly revise the function move scene cam to no location inside our BPI Studio Showcase. Add a bool input named next and remove the E map point and compile. These two buttons do not change any widgets. They only need to communicate with actors, so set them up to call all actors with interface and call move scene cam to new location with next set on for right and off for left. The actor we want to communicate with is the parent pawn, who will then communicate with the BP scene capture. Before we work on the move scene cam to new location function, let's create a new custom event inside of BP scene capture named send cam to new location that has a transform input named new transform. Drag in the scene capture component 2D and create a set world transform. Plug in new transform in the transform input. We need a way for our pawn to be able to call that new event we just made inside of BP scene capture. Add a new function inside of BPP pawn to get a reference to BP scene capture and add it to event begin play. Inside of this function, we will get all actors of class type BP scene capture, and because there is only one of them, we can simply get the 0 index from an array and promote it to a variable. Create our interface event move scene cam to new location in the event graph. When this event is called, we will cycle through our map points array and get the transform of the next or previous map point. We'll take that transform and send it to BP scene capture to teleport to and later animate to. We'll start first with a branch asking if next is true or false. If it's true, it will ask if a new integer variable named current map point index is greater than or equal to the length of the map points array -1. If it is, set the value to 0. If it is not, add 1 to the index value. We do the exact opposite for the reverse. We ask if current map point index is less than or equal to 0, and if it is, we make it the length of map points minus 1. If it is not, we subtract 1 from the index's value. Now that the index is set to either be 1 ahead or 1 behind of where we currently are in this array, we get that index from our map points array, get the actor's transform with an additional amount in the Z so the camera is not on the ground, and we plug this data into send cam to new location event inside of BP scene capture. And finally, let's test this. Spawn the map, switch to preview mode, and press either next or previous map points. And there we go, we're cycling between our map points. Having multiple ways to navigate within your scene allows the user to navigate in the way that works best for them. We now have the navigation menus set up, but they are missing a crucial piece to give us that dynamic movement. Next, we'll create the camera animations for our navigation map's top and preview modes.